In the before times, before I went to seminary, I was a middle school teacher and basketball coach. And I had a wonderful group of young boys to teach and mentor, and they were middle school kids. So occasionally, they weren't as nice to one another as I would hope. And I remember I was giving them a speech one time when I was making them run lines because they had done something. And as I got going, I was giving a really good speech about what it meant to grow up and to be a responsible human being, to take care of people, to love your neighbor. But at some point, I lost the track of where I was headed, and I couldn't figure out how to land the plane. And I was trying, but I was really on a roll, and everyone had their eyes on me, so I knew this was my chance to really make an impression. And I don't quite know how I got to this point, but all I know is I just watched the movie Shawshank Redemption earlier that week, and a line came to me from the Spirit, from the depths of my being. I don't know where it came from, but I ended the speech to 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds with, "When it comes down to it, either get busy living or get busy dying." And there was complete silence. And the only thing I could do to save the situation was to tell them, "Run down and back." Boop! And my co-teacher and coach came up to me and said, "That was different." I said, yeah, it was. So maybe 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is a little bit too young to be getting yelled at by your basketball coach. But for those of us who are here, I think it is maybe a healthy reflection that our theme for these two services have been to talk about both the dying process and the living process, knowing that at the end of our lives, we are all headed to the same place. So if you watched last week's service, or you're here, you filled out your events directive, like the good middle school students I know you are, you've signed up for your long-term disability insurance, you know what you want out of hospice or palliative care, you've learned about what happens to our bodies, and you're ready to die. Hopefully. And hopefully not in the immediate future. Hopefully somewhere down the road. But eventually, yes. As we know that not even going to the grocery store is a guaranteed return trip for us. So knowing what we want, how to communicate our wishes, knowing to tell the folks that we love how we feel. That's important. But just as important as knowing how we want to die or wish we might die is knowing how we want to live. Before our bodies shut down, our breath gets ragged, our brains turn off, we start to lose feeling. Perhaps before the machines cut off the ventilation or the heartbeat. Knowing that that is true and real, how does that free us to live more now? If we've done the business of dying so far, can we get busy living? That's what I hope we can talk about today. And not just like in general terms, because I think we all would agree with that. Yeah, we should live for today, in the moment, now. And it can be easy to lose sight of that. And it shouldn't only be in times of trauma or tragedy that we reflect on these spaces. So how do we want to live? What do we want to do? What's on our bucket list? I want to invite you to really consider that for a second. If you've never had this talk with a friend or with a partner or with yourself, knowing that we are going to die one day, how do I want to live? And what do I want to do before that time comes? Knowing that we're going to die can be very freeing. It can open us up to lots of possibility and puts those of us who are procrastinators on a time crunch. How long do I have to get done what I want to get done? So I want to really invite you to think about this for a second. What is on my bucket list? The list of things that I would love to get done before I, quote unquote, kick the bucket. I invite you to think about that. And if this is hard for you to do, if you're not in the space to do that right now, it's okay. You can hum the song that we just listened to. You can just hang out. What is on my bucket list? The next stage of that question is to think about us as a community. A community that is changing, growing, and, as lots of reports will say, is dying. The institutional church, the idea of organized religion, is dying or changing at the very least. And if that's true and real, what is on our bucket list? How do we want to live until then? I'm pausing because this is a hard question. And I think it's an important one. So here's what I would like to do. I would actually like to take some crowd input. I thought we might map our bucket lists. So if you were willing, I invite you to use this microphone and share if you're here in the sanctuary, or to use the raise hand icon on Zoom and share what's on your bucket list. The microphone is on. And I'll go first so that no one else has to. Because I am very privileged to say that it's actually very easy for me to think about this and talk about this, because by either divine providence or incredibly dumb luck, I've gotten to do a lot of the things on my bucket list that I came up with when I was like 15. So I had wanted to be of service to people. I'd wanted to travel to Israel and Palestine and walk where some of my heroes walked. I wanted to get married and live a life of love. I'd wanted to be a dad. I've gotten to do a lot of cool things in my life, and I recognize how much privilege and the power of my social identity has played into it. So for now, there's really one big thing. I want to go preach in another language somewhere, which tells you how much of a nerd I am. That's the big thing on my bucket list. to go and be in exchange somewhere, go visit, travel, hopefully bring my family, and to do this somewhere else. Right? Not for a long time, I don't think, at least once. And I'd like to go to Antarctica. But that's a whole nother story, and time is running out, unfortunately. So that's me. They're not very interesting. And that's a sign of my good fortune. But I'm wondering if others have ones that are maybe just as fun, just as quirky, maybe a little more serious. I'm going to put my mask on so I can run our microphone around. And folks who are online, if you would like to share, please do. Is there anyone who's feeling called to share? Tim. Thanks, sir.
So I wanted to, I guess it was around the time I was in,
Yeah, should be.
hello?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess around the time I was in college, I wanted to get married and be married for at least 7 years because it was a 7-year itch, right? Well, next week it'll be 39, so we passed the 7-year itch. Wanted to have kids, got 2 kids, and wanted to make sure they were good kids, 2 good kids. Other than that, for the duration, just wanted to keep being better, figure out how to be better, and figure out how when I fall down or other people fall down, how we can lift each other up. Not much more than that. And want to go to Alaska, supposed to be doing that in next year.
Thank you, Tim. Anne.
Morning. Well, as an ADD person over 80, here's where it's at. I've had a lot of luck in my life to travel, to be married to someone who is kind of unique, which takes a lot of strength, and had the 2 kids, took care of the one who's got a disability. But right now, I would like to keep my health, not quite the iceberg thing. I would like to do something about the fact that my files are a wreck. Haven't finished the poetry I wanted to do. I have a list that if I put it out, it would go up the wall and around the ceiling and down the wall. And also to be with this community really forever. So those are my bucket lists.
Okay, then we're going to switch tracks right here because there's another part to this question. It's about our bucket list. What do we want? Oh, we've got Sandy, actually. Sandy, are you with us?
Yeah, I've got something I could read.
Please, Sandy, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. This is on my chat, but I'll read it. From age 9, when we learned about nuclear destruction, I knew I was going to die. And my parents and grandmother said not to worry about it because everyone has to make room for the babies growing up. Just be flexible, they taught, and it made sense. Even if I couldn't imagine humanity surviving till the year 2000, I tried to live with the excitement and satisfaction of jumping into activism. There have been tragedies in my life, but at 86, I have no regrets. Like an actor, I hope to die on stage, or like a cowgirl galloping. I've been in every state but Alaska, would like to be there. I've been in 6 Asian countries, 6 European ones. And this summer, I hope to take a train ride once more across this country and back.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. So that's a good cross-section. And now the question is, what is on our bucket list as a community? And I've been thinking about this in 2 ways. Our theme is nurturing beauty. this month. And I think that's a wonderful purpose for a community. To nurture beauty, to nurture wholeness, and to build beloved community. So I think there are things that we do for us, right? To build community, to nurture beauty in one another and in our actual local community. And there are the things that I think we feel called to do, obligated to do, right? There are things that we do for us, to go and preach in another country, and the things that we feel obligated to do, right? To be of service, to take care of folks. And so I'm wondering, what are our bucket list dreams for this place, for us as a community? And it might be helpful to think of it in one of those two frames. Is there something that you would want for us that nurtures beauty? And is there something that you would want for us that you feel obligated, called to do, something of service? So let's think about that. What do I feel called to do? What do we feel called to do? What do we want that nurtures beauty and wholeness? Any thoughts? Bruce.
This sort of bridges both. The first thing that I thought of on my personal bucket list, I don't think Linda even knows this, was I was thinking that when I get old, 70s, 80s, something like that, I'd like to be like an election monitor, something in another country where my presence, especially as a American white person, could be of service to some community that can use support in trying to build their own democracy or whatever liberation is needed there. And for us as a community, I guess just our being able to show leadership in the city for dismantling racism, doing what we can for reparations and things like that.
Thank you. Amy.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. As a personal bucket list, and I guess as a community bucket list, which is an act of radical hospitality that we don't do all year, which is to ask people to donate things and give them to needy organizations more than just at the holidays. And I've been thinking about that a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love for us to have a flea market again. Looking at our folks online, is there anyone who wants to share who's not done so? I was prepared for this. Here's some ideas. A flea market. Because it's a place for the community to come and be together. And one of my first weekends here, I came to the flea market. Dot was holding court. Cynthia and Peter were running everything. And as I was talking with the vendors, one woman said to me, "We need this and we love this because it brings the community together. And no one is out here getting rich. But there aren't that many places where we can do this." in reading my extensive books that I've picked up on trauma-informed care and trauma-informed churches and worship and practices. Connection to people, and connection to the earth keeps coming back. And one presenter said, "When was the last time you stuck your toes in the dirt?" Seriously, when is the last time you stuck your toes in the dirt? Weeks, months for me. And that there's something radical and loving about digging your hands into the earth, about being that connected. What if we had a garden? And watching the news and hearing the blustering from certain politicians and seeing a common refrain that men will spend $44 billion to buy Twitter rather than go to therapy. What if we had a men's group? We do a lot in worship services. We try to do a lot in worship services. And there are folks who want a liberal, progressive, religious space, and they want a little more Jesus than we offer. What if we had a once-a-month Sunday evening service for those folks? There may be a time when people have to travel across state lines to receive health care. Women and human beings with a uterus may need a place to stay. And it may be dangerous for them. I wonder what sanctuary looks like. These are just some ideas, things that I've been thinking about. I'm not asking us to do these things, I'm asking us to think. What's on our bucket list? How do we want to live as a congregation? Who do we want to be? Because you can either get busy living or get busy dying. As my basketball team at St. Martin de Porres Academy learned at 11 years old. So as we think about who we want to be in this city, in our community, for ourselves, I hope that we don't run away from the feelings that surround it. You might feel despair, the death of the institutional church, something to which I've pledged my life. With the growing political trauma. You might feel excitement or joy, exhaustion. But those are all welcome guests in this house. Because to get busy living, as we constantly try to remind ourselves, is to feel all these things. Doesn't mean you have to do anything with them. But to not feel, to not question, to not interrogate, to not wonder, to not try. That feels like dying to me. And not in a way that I want to. So that's my hope for us. That we might take this period as we go into the summer, and we take a little bit of time off, perhaps, from being around all the to-dos, the next thing on our to-do list, The next thing on the buildings and grounds checklist. The next thing on my work checklist.